This is a CBS News special report. I'm Jeff Glor in New York, and we do have breaking news. A big shakeup in the Trump cabinet, though one not entirely unexpected. Jeff Sessions is now out as Attorney General. Sessions said he has submitted his resignation at the president's request. The president just tweeted, quote, "We are pleased to announce that Matthew G. Whitaker, Chief of Staff to Attorney General Jeff Sessions at the Department of Justice, will become our new acting Attorney General of the United States. He will serve our country well. We thank Attorney General Jeff Sessions for his service and wish him well, exclamation point. A permanent replacement will be nominated at a later date." The president and Jeff Sessions had been at odds over Sessions' decision to recuse himself from the special counsel investigation of Russian interference in the 2016 election. They had been at odds since the very beginning of the Trump administration, and it's been an unusual back and forth on Twitter and at press conferences for more than a year and a half now. Jeff Pegues is standing by in our D.C. bureau with more on all of this. Jeff, as we said, big news as it happens not only hours after the midterm elections. The polls close here, but not entirely unexpected.
Yeah, the ink is barely dry on the results of the midterm elections, and we have this now with Sessions resigning. It is not unexpected. There had been a discussion about this in Republican circles over the last several weeks, really over the last couple of months. But it seems as if over the last 2 years, really, there has been this watch about when Attorney General Sessions might step away from his job, might get fired, or might resign, and we have this today. So this is something that has been talked about, in part because of the president's frustration with the Russia investigation and Attorney General Jeff Sessions' role in the Russia investigation, which, according to the president and many of his supporters, has not been prominent enough. And there is a reason for that. The Attorney General had to recuse himself because of his contacts with the Russian ambassador during the 2016 campaign. It was something that career justice officials advised him to do, and so he took that step. But it has been a thorn in the president's side ever since he took that step. And over the last year or so, he has told associates, the president has, that if only Jeff Sessions had told him that he would recuse himself in this case, well, then he would not have nominated Jeff Sessions to be his attorney general. And so there has been a lot of talk over the last several months that this would happen. But to see it happen within hours of election night is perhaps surprising, but we knew this was coming. This has been the talk and the speculation of Washington, and now it has happened. And, by the way, via Twitter. This, according to our data, is the second time that the president has essentially fired one of his cabinet members. The first was Rex Tillerson via Twitter. Jeff.
Okay, Jeff Pegues, thank you very much. Jeff Sessions, it should be noted, was one of the president's earliest and biggest and most notable backers, but this falling out happened, as we mentioned, almost immediately after the election happened. Jeff Sessions did just release a letter here in his resignation. He did say, we have embraced, to the president, we've embraced your directive to be a law and order Department of Justice. We prosecuted the largest number of violent offenders and firearm defendants. We took on transnational gangs. We did our part to restore immigration enforcement, and we targeted the opioid epidemic. And Sessions says we have results. Chip Reed is at the White House this afternoon. Chip, our own Major Garrett asked the president about who may be leaving the administration here following the midterms. The president punted a bit, but now we have our first answer.
That's right. Major Garrett said, and can you give us clarity, sir, on your thinking currently now after the midterms on your Attorney General and your Deputy Attorney General? Do they have long-term job security? President Trump responded, I'd rather answer that at a little bit different time. He said, I didn't want to do anything before the midterms. Well, he moved very quickly after the midterms. Now the big question is, what happens next? Is Sessions just the first of the dominoes to go over, and could they include Mueller?
In this case, a little bit different time was 2 hours later. Chip, what else are we hearing at the White House this afternoon?
Well, we are mostly hearing what an extraordinary and extraordinarily contentious press conference this was. It really was a battle between the president and the press. This is one reason he does not hold many press conferences. He does those little sessions out on the driveway before he gets on the helicopter, but those he can just walk away from at any time, anytime he gets too frustrated. But his frustrations were just brimming at this press conference, and that is really what's going on here. Everybody trying to digest exactly what happened. He praised Nancy Pelosi, but he shamed and condemned the Republicans who did not ask him to campaign for him, and said basically that they got what they deserved. So a lot of bitterness, a lot of praising himself for what he said was a big victory, although exit polls showed that more people turned up at the polls to vote against President Trump than turned up to vote for him. Jeff?
More than 100 million people voted in the midterm elections, the first time that has ever happened, and the president today holding the longest news conference of his presidency. Chip Reed, thanks very much. To repeat, Attorney General Jeff Sessions today submitted his resignation to President Trump, as he pointed out, at the president's request. The Chief of Staff to Attorney General Jeff Sessions, Matthew G. Whitaker, now takes over as acting Attorney General. The president says he'll be appointing a permanent new Attorney General at a later date. So this becomes the first domino to fall, if you will, following the midterm elections, at least as it concerns the Trump cabinet. We're going to have much more about all of this on your local news on this CBS station, on our 24-hour streaming news service, CBSN, and then right here tonight on the CBS Evening News. Until then, I'm Jeff Glor, CBS News right here in New York.
For news 24 hours a day, go to cbsnews.com.